The distinctive sound of a Formula One car. With the season ending, some motorsport fans may be left with a V8 sized hole in their heart. But if you need something to fill it, how about this? Now if that sounds familiar, it's probably because it wakes you up every Saturday morning. That is 13 horsepower of pure gardening power, otherwise known as a lawnmower. If you wouldn't mind watching something that's a little less clean cut than Formula One, then this might be the sport for you. Max Fandejewski is a former world champion. He's preparing for next season, but he made time in his busy schedule to take a call. How did you get into lawnmower racing?
It all started from when I visited my dad's friend, who, funny enough, ended up being the president of the club for a period of time as well. So that's how it started for me.
So what characteristics do you think define a champion in the sport?
Experience. You just need to have experience in how to ride a racing lawnmower, which might sound a bit bizarre, but it's very different to most other forms of motorsport. It's obviously done on a field, and that field could be will be different every single weekend. So you kind of have to adapt your driving to the field and to the track layout that's decided on the day, and it's just being consistent.
Max is from West Sussex. This is where the sport started in 1973. It was thought of by a group of mates in the pub over a few pints. Irishman Jim Gavin was heavily into rally at the time, but then sponsors were beginning to take interest. He wanted a motorsport no one would want to sponsor, and that could be accessible to anyone. This is where he came up with the idea of lawnmower racing. It was described as the cheapest motorsport in the UK, but it still attracted its fair share of famous faces, from Chris Evans to Formula One legends to Sterling Moss. So how fast do the mowers end up going?
On a long endurance race, which is normally over a very, very large field, where we will have a much higher gear, which just basically means our acceleration is a bit slower, but getting up to our top speed along the straights, getting up to about 50 miles an hour.
Do you think it's difficult to stay on the motors?
Yeah, and again, it all comes down to each field that we race in. The terrain changes completely, and some of them are a lot bumpier than others.
So do you have to wear specific clothing?
We do, yeah. You need to be fully covered, so a long sleeve top and trousers. You need to have sturdy footwear. You need to have gloves, and you need to have a full face helmet as well, and goggles.
You might be wondering, what does it do to the lawnmowers to make them go that fast? I asked Max just that.
You basically remove all the gearing and the running gear, and then essentially you replace the running gear with a very simple, direct, what we call a T-drive, which turns horizontal down into vertical transmission. And then because of we're obviously not using them for their intended use, and we're using them at much higher speeds, they need to be strengthened. The engines have to be standard lawnmower engines, and the only thing you're allowed to do to those engines is to take a governor off it, and all the governor does, the manufacturers put the governors on so it stops people over revving the engines. So it just means that you can't pin it full throttle with the governor. It just stops it from basically breaking or blowing up. All we do is take that governor out so they're completely free revving, so that means that we can run them at much faster and higher RPMs. And obviously it goes without saying, even though it is a lawnmower, you do take off all the cutting gear. So anything that actually was used to cut the grass, that all comes off. We don't need that anymore. Obviously, one for safety and two for weight.
Now, the whole time I had one question playing on my mind, and I couldn't help but ask. Do you reckon when you retire you could become a gardener?
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now that's a career I bet Lewis Hamilton has struggled with.